evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 3, season 2 of Real Talk. I'm Michelle Lee, your host. And before I bring out our special guests this evening, I'd like to take a moment to remember and celebrate the life of Aaron Frosty Foster, who we lost yesterday at the age of 28. He was an extraordinary guitar player, a member of the Amanda Cook Band. He and his fellow bandmate and dear friend, Troy Boone, recently released their single, County Fool, on Mountain Fever Records, which just peaked on the Bluegrass Today charts at number 6. He has been a guest on all my shows, from the Bluegrass Borderline, the Smoke Country Jam, and Real Talk Bluegrass here on Bluegrass Music TV. So together, myself and Sammy Passamano III created a video to honor Frosty.
Frosty.
That same thing. I'm just not gonna.
But you, yeah. Frosty.
That same thing. I'm just not gonna take it for granted anymore that when you get to play music, period, even if it's a jam session, you know how many times I think now that I was at Spigma where it was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and you're kind of tired. You have one more opportunity to jam and you pass up on it to go take a nap or whatnot. To go back to that time and be like, I would just stay up and play. I would just do it. You know, it's like, and that's kind of the edge I think that bluegrass is going to get back. And I think when these festivals first start safely opening up, like where we can post about it on social media and be like, hey, look what we're doing, fun, you know, without, you know, feeling bad about, you know, being there, you know, when that happens again, it's going to be insane because these people they're all pumped up, you know, like my grandparents, for example, they missed their whole summer, and at their age, you know, being retired is the only thing they look forward to the whole year. And you combine that energy with a bunch of fired up musicians that want to play, it's going to be nuts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to assume Frosty has nothing to do with it. Please, he will not raise his child.
So far, the test has came back negative.
Negative. No, yeah.
I love that you just lost me there. I love the fact that Frosty's in between the two of you, by the way. Just pointing that out.
You never know when you have to break these two up. You never know.
He's a well-trained mediator. He knows to take my side whenever it counts, and most of the time take Caroline's side.
So it wasn't so bad. What are you doing?
I'm replying to friends who are making fun of me because I'm like, hey, are you on live? I'm going to sing you something funny.
Oh, yeah. I see. Yeah, I know for me, the most daring thing was riding back to our hotel after Milan, Michigan, and seeing signs that say do not enter and watching the car turn right down the do not enter side, the wrong side of the interstate, get ready to go on. That was probably the most daring thing in my experience.
My bad.
And who was the driver at that time?
Yeah, and then here's the famous Amanda quote, but did you die? I think my favorite one is from the Pennyroyal Opera House. I've got saved on there. I tried to do one of them, you know, nice panoramic photos where I can get one side of the stage and get the whole crowd and get the other side. Well, she moved ever so slightly, so it just parted her face just enough to where it still looks real, but her eyebrows are super wide apart. And she's got like she's winking in one and her eyes wide open in the other. Yeah. Her first IBMA award. I'm gonna have that just like played and streamed across the background. I think I could go through sushi like especially and never stop. Yeah, especially write me out. Write me out. Want some sushi?
No, you're not getting sushi.
I know we're getting sushi.
Would be the
I'm not even wearing deodorant right now.
How we are right now is how we are all the time. And, you know, we all care about what we're doing and we all care about one another. And we've all got a vested interest in the band, and everybody does their part, and it's a team. And it's really that therapy sweet, I promise you.
And how about you guys? Do you feel the same, or you're thinking she's just, I don't know. You wonder about her sometimes.
For me, it's definitely like a family thing because I mean we're talking about this pandemic. I haven't seen my grandparents or parents since last January, Christmas break. I haven't been home in over a year. you know.
Wow.
So without these guys here, you know, it gets kind of lonely. There's lots of, you know, there's a difference between friends and family. You know, I don't think I could have stayed with someone for a month during a quarantine that wasn't family. You know what I'm saying? Here's another thing that Bluegrass needs to know about. They need to know about Aaron Ramsey.
Yes.
Aaron Ramsey is one of the best behind the console, like sound engineers and musicians, period. Okay, the guy's been a freak since the beginning. He's played with Malin Hart. He plays bass, guitar, banjo. He plays it all. If you don't know who Aaron Ramsey is, get to know him, folks. He's the real deal. And they just had their first kid today.
Yeah.
Jovi.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing. Happy for everybody. It's good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We took it through Raising Cane's, Bojangles, Hardee's. I mean, it's been Bluegrass. It's ready to go.
She even hit a curb.
Yeah. No, you didn't hit a curve. Or a person. Nothing. Yeah.
What a great guy. What great memories. And now let's make more memories. And in the memory of Aaron Frosty Froster, let's bring on Darren Nicholson and Dan Eubanks. Darren Nicholson, of course, with Boston Range. Dan Eubanks from Special Consensus. Thank you guys for joining on a very emotional day for the world of bluegrass. Do you guys have any remembrance of seeing Frosty and the band out on the road that you could share with us, Darren and Dan? We'll go with Darren first.
Well, I got to meet him a couple of times. I didn't know him personally. A lot of times when you're playing bluegrass, you kind of you see your friends, but you don't really get to spend a lot of time with them. You know, you're kind of coming in, loading in, and they're loading out, and you kind of pass each other and say hi. You don't get to hang out, I think, as much as people think you do. But just what a tragedy, 28 years old, and the guy is full of life and just a good energy. You know, it's just we hate to see that. And I just want everybody to know I'm thinking about his friends and family, everybody who's suffering that loss right now. It's been a hard year and a half for a lot of people, you know, and this is just another thing that it's just, you know, we're gonna have to get through. But what a great guy! It's great to hear him laughing and sharing stories on there.
Oh yeah. How about you, Dan? Did you guys with Special C ever run into him on the road?
Oh yeah, we did several shows with Dreamcatcher, and we would run across the ETSU Pride Band out there once in a while, and you know, Spigma, Jenny Brooke, just, you know, yeah, we crossed paths quite a bit, and he was just hilarious. He was just great fun to be around. He could not be in a bad mood if Frosty was in the room. He's just a light. He is an absolute light, and it's a really, really sad story. And I just want to echo what Darren said, that we're all thinking hard and praying hard and just hoping for peace for his family and friends. It's just brutal. So
yeah,
he's going to be missed.
Definitely a loss in the bluegrass community. And you know, one of the things about the community of bluegrass, we always come together and you know, we're there for each other. And one of the things that is amazing with the two of you both are with two outstanding bands that have both taken home some prestigious awards with the International Bluegrass Music Association, along with being nominated for Grammys. Dan, tell us a little bit, of course, about, you know, you've been playing music and performing for pretty much your entire life, to the point that you grew up in the St. Louis area, and you were teaching, and now you're kind of going back to that. But we'll touch base about your new adventure during this pandemic here in a bit. But, you know, what really got you into performing in bluegrass specifically?
Well, I started performing just hanging out with my buddies when we were dumb little teenagers, going to, you know, beer parties and stuff. I hate to admit that, but those sort of things did happen. You know, playing rock power trio stuff, and you know, our guitar player was about 10 years older than me and my drummer buddy, and we got in a fair amount of trouble doing that when we were kids, but we also learned a whole lot. And when we were in high school, we were playing gigs. We weren't working at McDonald's. We were pretty blessed that way, and really got to learn a lot about life just playing in the bars back in the day, before we were really old enough to do that. But the rules weren't the same back then. They were, but they just weren't as followed quite as tightly as they are now. So.
Well, one of the unique things I think, and I think you bring a lot of it to Special Consensus, is the fact that you actually studied jazz bass. And I mean, you kind of implement in your style of playing today too. And that right there is, something we need to discuss, because that's unique for one musician.
Well, as a bass player, I basically just kind of played whatever I had to play to make a living and what drew my interest. And sometimes those two weren't always the same, but I always got something out of each one of those. And I went to college on a music scholarship, and I wasn't a classical player, so the only place I could end up was a jazz program back then. There was no bluegrass programs around. We're talking about the mid 80s here. Around where I was anyway, in St. Louis area. So yeah, I ended up just kind of default going into a jazz program and just learning music in a deep way through studying jazz. And then I just went on through with a master's degree, and just started playing. That's what brought me to the upright bass. I was just playing electric before that. So I didn't really start playing upright bass till I was, second year of college or so. I was a percussion major first, so I was playing drums. I still do play drums, but that's what got me a scholarship originally. But there were no other bass players, so I ended up playing bass all the time and never hardly touched the drums. So I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to become a bass major and just do that. So I did that, and eventually kind of found my way back to bluegrass. I grew up on bluegrass and wanted to be a bluegrass musician until I got probably in the early high school, and everything just kind of changed. Started playing rock and roll and stuff, but eventually, I think it was around the time that "Oh Brother Where Art Thou" came out. That started leading me back to bluegrass, and eventually got me to Nashville, which through all sorts of other little twists and turns got me an audition with Special Consensus. So that's the sort of the quick and dirty version of it.
Well, and of course, we're going to talk about the length of time that you've had with Special C and all the new adventures you guys are doing, and that. But Darren, now on to you. I mean, you're a talented musician in your own right as well, from Western North Carolina. You've been nominated for Grammys. You've nominated for IBMA awards. You've taken a few of those home. Tell us a little bit about things that have brought you into the bluegrass world at the young age that you were drawn to it.
Yeah, basically, I've been playing this kind of music as long as I can remember. Western North Carolina has a rich heritage with bluegrass and old time music, and old time square dance and clogging. There were a lot of clogging teams from this area years ago. It was just a part of the culture that they used to teach old time music in the schools, and a lot of schools had clogging teams. And so, like old time mountain dance, music, storytelling. The oldest folk festival in the nation happens in Asheville, North Carolina, which is about 20 minutes west of me, and started by a guy named Bascom Lamar Lunsford, who's done a lot to promote traditional music over the years. But my family played music, and so I grew up in a home where we listened to the Grand Ole Opry or WSM every single night. My dad played music. Everybody in my family played music. Friday and Saturday nights would basically be, we'd move all the furniture back in the house, and there'd be 15, sometimes 5 to 15 people in there playing music. And there'd be banjos and electric guitars and fiddles. And back then there wasn't this segregation of like country music and bluegrass. It was just everybody getting together to pick. It was a social thing. But in our house, and a lot of people kind of like Conway Twitty and Merle Haggard and George Jones were kind of the same as Bill Monroe and Flatt and Scruggs. Like there wasn't, let's play a bluegrass song or let's play a country song. It's just, it was all kind of an amalgamation of things. But I started playing for tips when I've got pictures of my first show when I was 18 months old. I couldn't play, but I had a little plastic guitar and I was sitting on stage with my parents and they gave me the tip money. So that's where I started making money, playing all around Western North Carolina at parties, events, cakewalks, benefits, things like that. So it was just, I don't remember anything other than a musical life.
Now, I got a question for you, Darren, about those tips when you were younger. Did you make more then than you do now?
It's a lot of times. Hey, a kid, you can't follow a kid or a dog act. You can put a kid on stage, and if they're any good or not, people love it. So, I probably did make more money than I do now. I was going to say, I guess Dan and myself, we got into jazz and bluegrass because we knew that's where all the money was.
When you look back at your career, Darren, to this point, you've played with some top-notch artists in the industry, and then some. Of course, you've recorded with Vince Gill, Zach Brown Band, Earl Scruggs, just to name a few. I mean, you've really been playing with some stellar artists in the industry and in country, and all across the board. Can you share with us one of your fondest memories with one of or several of those artists that you've played with before joining up with Balsam Range?
Yeah, my dad played honky-tonk country music, and in Western North Carolina where I live, there's a lot of these people in this mountain community. They went out west and actually very exclusively to Seattle, Washington, in the 50s and 60s, and they took mountain music with them. That's why there's a festival in Darrington, Washington. That's why there's all this bluegrass out there. Dan knows all about this. They used to have a thing called the Tar Heel Picnic because there were so many mountain people from Western North Carolina who went out there to log and work in the timber, but they took their instruments and they took the music with them. And that's why bluegrass in the Northwest kind of got going. But in the 60s, when my dad was out there playing in honky tonks, Buck Owens and Merle Haggard were huge, and my dad played old time fiddle, bluegrass fiddle, but he also played electric guitar. And on a side note, that guitar right now, Chris Stapleton's got my dad's guitar and he plays it every night. And so that guitar is still getting to play country music and honky tonk music, which is really cool. But in 2004, I was playing with Alicia Nugent. We got an opportunity to do some shows with Merle Haggard and open. The first one we did was in Solomon's Island, Maryland. And John and TJ Osborne from the country band Brothers Osborne, they were in the band at that time. But we got to go backstage and meet Merle Haggard. And I had this tiny little phone. It was way before smartphones. And I hadn't had a cell phone long. But I actually got on the bus, and when everybody left, I got to call. I said, "Would you care to talk to my dad on the phone? He's made a living playing your music. He loves you." And so my dad got to talk to Merle Haggard on the phone for a few minutes, and he died the following year. He died on Valentine's Day of 2005. So that's a very special memory to me because, we love Merle Haggard. We love his music.
Oh yeah, definitely. One of the neatest things about being a performer and players, as long as you have been, you guys have some amazing, great stories. And I know Special Consensus, Dan, you guys have some really killer stories, and I hope you can share some because when you look at it, it was 1975 where Greg created and founded Special C, and it's still living on and going strong. Of course, members have come and gone. But you've been part of it for several years now in that. But, you guys have had so many talented musicians that you guys been playing with. And that, tell us a little bit about some of those wonderful stories of your guys's and who you've played with and remember those days.
Well, I've been in the band I'm going on 8 years now in April, which is hard to believe. 4 records. So starting off with the lineup that was on my first one was me, on bass, Greg obviously on banjo, Rick Ferris was on mandolin, and we had Dustin Benson on guitar. And so that was the lineup that recorded the John Denver tribute record, where we played all John Denver tunes, arrangements of them, and just brought basically everybody that's ever been in bluegrass was on that record. So just about. Yeah, it was a cavalcade of bluegrass stars, and that was kind of there's the record. And that was kind of a baptism by fire for me, because that was my first like real bluegrass recording. And I hadn't been in the band very long at all when that started. So getting thrown into Compass Studio, the old Hillbilly Central, where so much of the music that we all love was recorded by Waylon, and you know, the Hartford Aeroplane record was done there. It's just I could go on and on about that studio. Every time I'm in there, I just can't believe that I'm in that room.
Mhm.
I mean, we grew up with those records, and you know, my grandmother wore out that Outlaws record, the Waylon and Willie Outlaws record, and you know, anyway, so it meant a lot to me to be in that room. And then the people that came in to record with us, I mean, you know, Rhonda Vincent was probably one of the first bluegrass acts with Sally Mountain when she was about 12 years old. First bands I probably ever saw, growing up in Missouri. So, you know, for her to come in and sing was a big deal for me, because, you know, I've been listening to her and her family for a long, long time. And that was pretty amazing. And, you know, Jim Lauderdale and Cowan came in and sang on it. It was just crazy, which is kind of cool, because later I got Cowan to come and sing on my record. So that's kind of neat, the way those connections kind of happen. And then just the first, you know, I can't really say enough about working with Allison Brown. And, you know, that just started a relationship that's been so much fun and grown so much from just being around her. She's just brilliant, and she's a great producer and a great musician, and she just makes you better. She stretches you outside of your comfort zone, and gets things out of you that you probably didn't know you had.
Have you two, I mean, I know, you know, the fact folks probably know a little bit about what Allison does. Of course, she's a producer. She's a record label owner with her husband with Compass Records. But, you know, she's a stellar banjo player, of course. But she's kind of got a nice jazz feel to some of her albums that are out there. Have you ever, like, you know, approached her, hey, let's do a little jazz album together, you know, together? I mean,
well,
I think
I would love to do something like that with Allison, but she's got this husband that's a bass player, so it's kind of
ruins
hard.
everything.
That's a tough nut to crack, you know. So,
I guess
but
you
I
could
would
do
love to. I would love to, and she knows I would. I've made it very plain, so someday that might happen.
Now, is there for the two of you, is there other of course you both have amazing great solo albums out. Dan, of course, yours is Look What the City's Done, that you've put out just recently, phenomenal project, produced by yourself and Chas Williams, and then of course Darren, you have a collection of solo projects. I'm going to try to hold up as many as I can. I mean, here's one. Look, and you're right. You kind of had some hair then, man.
I know. I know what you're thinking. Have you ever thought about playing bad music without recording it? I know. That's what you're thinking. But no, I haven't. I've recorded everything.
You know, Fred Aspel. And okay, you guys.
Oh, there's obviously my store. Yeah.
Hey, tell us about that wonderful stickers and T-shirts that you recently had made up for your store to sell.
Well, sex sells. Let's just be honest. And there's me in my underwear on a couch, and I just thought, you know, something that the girls and some of the guys would really like. So.
Hey, what was that number again?
I do have some stickers. I actually sell more of that than I do my music. I've got hats and just a mercantile. I've got masks. That's my silhouette right there. I haven't sold any mud flaps yet, but that's me in all my glory. But I love I did. We came up with this. We were saying one night on the way to the gig, say no to drugs and say yes to Scruggs. And so I think that's a shirt that everybody needs in bluegrass right there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We love Earl Scruggs. I'm from North Carolina. I've played at the Earl Scruggs Center down there, and just love his music.
All right. So, Darren, tell us a little bit about your newest project, because I know A Radio has a couple singles of yours that you just recently released. So you're getting back in there doing some more solo projects during this pandemic. Is that what's been kind of keeping you busy? What is keeping you busy during this last year?
Yeah, it's about all we can do right now is record or teach. There's a lot of virtual teaching going on, but we're in a situation where we're powerless. This is out of our hands, and so the only we just got to change our attitude and kind of change gears. And I can't go out and play live shows. I can't be out with people. So what can I do? Let's make the best of my time. So I've done a lot of songwriting, and I do just finished writing a couple tunes with Eric Gibson, my buddy Mark Bumgarner, Brink Brinkman, and I've written a couple tunes, but about 95% of the songs that I've written have been with Charles Humphrey III. He's a founding member of Steep Canyon Rangers, but Charles has a band called Songs from the Road Band now, and he lives in West Asheville. He's about 20 minutes from me, and I absolutely love writing songs with him, and I've really gotten into that. It's been a positive way to it's ignited a different part of I've always considered myself a singer first, and kind of a musician second, but the songwriting is just it's been amazing for me. It's just been almost a spiritual experience this year. It's something new to do with music, something to keep me excited. So, one of those songs is about to be released. There's a session called Bluegrass at the Crossroads, and we did like an all-star compilation, and it's Kevin Kerberg, Jeremy Garrett from the String Dusters, Skip Cherry Holmes, Kristen Benson, myself, and Travis Book. And we recorded 5 or 6 tunes. And one of the songs that Charles and I wrote, called Lonesome Is the Price I Pay, is going to be dropping on February 16th. Awesome. And so that's going out. That's one of the new songs. And I'm currently working on a solo electric record of a bunch of these original tunes. It's almost kind of rockabilly, some of it's rock and roll, some of it's country, but and then of course Balsam Range went in, and we've got 15 or 16 songs cut, and we just released another we've released 3 singles so far during quarantine, and the last one is called Rivers and Rains and Runaway Trains. It just came out a couple weeks ago. So we can't play live, but we're, trying to be, constructive and, it's our time.
Well, and that's the key thing. And I know this had to put a halt to Special Consensus, Dan, because you guys just released, the Chicago Barn Dance 45th anniversary album for the band, and, paying tribute to Chicago. How did that kind of
worst timing ever?
I know, right? So it's like, all right, where do you go from there? Where you have this album celebrating 45 years of the band, and you can't go out and perform. What have you guys been up to with that?
Well, in the early part of the shutdown, we did do some video recording. Guys came down to Nashville. Nate Burry, who's our mandolin player now, lives here. So Greg and Rick came into town, and we did a little quick hit for the CBA over the Father's Day Bluegrass Festival time, which we would have been playing. Obviously that didn't happen. So we were part of their video broadcast. That was really cool. And then we just kind of did a little bit extra just to throw up on Facebook. And eventually we did get around to the IBMA virtual awards show, which was it was strange. It was a thrill because that was the first time I'd gotten onto the Ryman stage. I've been on the wings before, and I've been to shows, but I hadn't been on the actual stage. But I had to put my back to the seats. So, but you know what? That's all right. It's to be on that on that stage.
That's
so
right.
that was one of the unlooked for benefits of this was that, at least personally for me. So that's basically what we did. We just had a couple of video projects, and then the IBMA Awards show was sort of the crowning jewel of the whole thing for us this year. But it's just too bad. I love the record. It's, we really stretched on it. We got interesting songs from a lot of different places and did some really cool arrangements that, just never got to see the light of day. So, but, we've got some things coming up in April, keeping the fingers crossed. If specialc.com that you're showing there has got our tour schedule, and we're just hoping that, that all pans out. Last year we were, looking at dates 2 months out, 3 months out, and they'd cancel, and sometimes they wouldn't, and we just never knew what we were looking at. So we're just hoping that we're going to be able to put it out there a little bit. So we're going to be touring that material when we get back out. So we're working hard at getting it together and getting it out there. Yep, there we are. So we're doing a little run in Florida in April, which should be fun. And then we're going to play the ISIS over there in your backyard, Darren. So
Yeah, I love the ISIS Music Hall, and
man.
You guys you'll love that venue. It's a great venue.
Well, we're looking real forward to it. We've been hoping to get in that room for a long time, and it's going to be fun. I love playing North Carolina, so
I'm going to come see you if I can.
Well, I hope so, man. It's like April 24th or something like that. But yeah, check it out. So there's Michelle.
I would just like to say that Special Consensus, I first met Greg Cahill back in the early 2000s. I was introduced to him by Steve Sutton, great banjo player from North Carolina. Greg has always had an awesome band. He's always had a great band. He's such a great guy. He's done so much between teaching and doing the work in the schools to help promote the kind of music that we love. And he's got a killer band now. I love Dan's playing. Dustin Benson told me about him. I knew Dustin very well years ago, but I've been a fan of Dan's playing and that whole band for a long time. They're a great bunch of guys. And if you get a chance to go see them on the road, you won't be disappointed. They make great records. They have a great live show. They're just a class act.
We're big fans of y'all's too, man. So it goes both ways, son. Believe me.
Well, I know there's Rick had a question. Sammy, if you don't mind popping that back up for us, I'd greatly appreciate it. He had a question. Rick from California, of course, loyal fan of Bluegrass Specialties and Boston Range. So he wants to know, Dan, being a longtime member of Special Consensus, and of course Darren of Boston Range, both of these bands haven't been around for quite a long time. What would you attribute the longevity of the bands and your own longevity as a member? We'll go with Dan first.
Well, I would attribute Special C's longevity to tenacity of Greg Cahill and the hard work of Greg Cahill. That man goes down in his basement and puts a coffee on and starts answering emails and working the phone, and he doesn't come up again until his wife gets back from work in the evening. Well, of course, it's different now since she's working out of the house. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. He works and works. That's how. And always having his ear to the ground for the best players and singers. You got to remember, everybody in Special C's got to sing. So he's got a real good ear for who's going to blend both groove-wise and vocally. So he's just got that sense. He's one of those people, and he's always just been able to put it together. As far as myself, I'm real close with Greg. He's one of my best friends, and it's really hard to imagine not being in a band with Greg Cahill for me at this point. And everybody that's come through the band is also, we're all brothers, one of the saddest things about this past year is that we missed having the 45th anniversary show. Every 5 years, we do a giant anniversary show. And we couldn't do it this year. So it got punted into next year. So it'll be a 45+1 anniversary. But, that's always a big deal to have that thing and see all of the players that are out there. Everybody comes through that played on the records and plays a tune or two. So, and it ends up being a massive event because there's been something like 46 or 8 players in the band over the years. Not all of them were on records, but a pretty vast majority were. So yeah, that's how I would answer that. It's just tenacity from Greg Cahill, a nose for talent, and the willingness to he loves the music first. I can't really say enough about that, how much you have to love the music to do all the stuff you have to do to put it out there. I mean, it's not easy, it's no picnic running a band and doing all the things you have to do. And the payoff is the music. So, and that's what all of us do it for is that. And I guess that's a short answer, a long answer that should have been shorter. So anyway, yeah.
All right, Darren, how about you and Balsam Range?
Don't quit. That's it. That's all I got. No.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's something to be said for just perseverance, just not quitting. In bluegrass, especially, there's a lot of times you'll see bands that make a lot of money and they hate each other, but they stay together because of the money. So in bluegrass, where there's not this big economic payoff, a lot of times you'll see people, they just up and quit because, they're not making a lot of money. It's hard travel, and one little thing goes wrong and they quit. And so you see so much personnel change in bluegrass, and I think that's part of it. But Balsam Range got together. We all live in the same county. We all live about 5-10 minutes from each other, which is extremely rare in bluegrass. Most people are usually spread out. I think that's a big part of it. Tim and I came off the road about the same time. Buddy had left a band. Caleb had left a band, and Mark was playing locally. He wasn't playing with Ricky Skaggs anymore. He's playing with a local group. And we just all found ourselves at home at the same time. Buddy and I did a couple of solo records, and that's kind of how the band started. But, just the convenience of it is a big thing. But when we sat down, we had all played music professionally at some level. And we all knew what we didn't like about the music business. We all knew what we liked about it, what we didn't want to do. I mean, there's a lot of shows every year that we don't do just because we said early on, we're going to do this and it's going to be fun. We're not going to play everything that comes along and burn ourselves out and get sick of each other. And so we had like a seldom seen type approach because, our goal was just to play local shows. I didn't want to go back out on the road. I wanted to play local gigs at home and come home. I had a young son at the time. Now he's graduated high school. And that's kind of how we sat down as businessmen first. And we said, here's our business plan. Here's the things we want to do. Here's our goals. When you approach it, a lot of bands form out of a jam session or the fun of the music, and they don't think ahead to all the business part of it, the logistics. And so Balsam Range has never been the best players or singers, but I got in a group with 4 really savvy businessmen, and that has been the key to it for me. We knew, we weren't planning on setting the world on fire. We were like-minded in ideas and goals, what we wanted to do. And I think that's kind of been how we've held it together,
Well, amazing, great. And I got to touch on this on both of you guys because special consensus on Rivers and you guys have a 10-string symphony join in on a tune on this album, and then of course Balsam Range plays with the Atlanta Pops Orchestra. how was that bringing that into the music that you guys perform? We'll go with Darren first, because when you get a whole orchestra going and create a whole album out of it, how was that working with the Atlanta Pops Orchestra?
I love it, but I love music. I'm like Dan, I like jazz. I love blues music. I love nothing's really off limits. And I think it all fits together if it's done the right way. Now, I've heard a lot of bluegrass with orchestras where it was like a square peg in a round hole and it didn't fit. But the guy that we had score our songs had a bluegrass background, so he kind of knew. And so orchestra with a bluegrass band should be like a texture. It should really come together like country music, like where everything's got a very specific place, and the orchestra's not overpowering the bluegrass band, this and that, and it should be very tasteful the way it complements each other. And so that was our first goal. But I mean, I played violin. I was in strings all through middle school into high school. I loved classical music, but that was just there's so many songs that Balsam Range has done. Not all of them. Some of them are 3 chords and a cloud of dust, like barn burning bluegrass. And that, that probably ain't going to fit with the orchestra. But there's a lot of songs that we have. There's like, man, I could hear an orchestra with this, and picking the right material is kind of key to pulling that off too. But we all just love that kind of music. We love ensembles. We love working with other musicians. It makes you a better musician, and anything that gets you out of your comfort zone and out of the box. I've always heard if you're always comfortable, it means you're not growing. And so, I love things that push me, and the orchestra is just so much fun. It is so much.
Well, and this album, Rivers and Roads, of course, you guys took home an IBMA award for Album of the Year, as well as the Instrumental Record of the Year for Squirrel Hunters on this. But again, working with a 10-string symphony, how was that for you guys, and how did that kind of come together?
Well, 10-string, despite the name, it's actually 2 people. They're playing 5-string fiddle. It's Rachel Bayman and Christian Settlemeyer. So that's how it goes. But they sound like there are a whole bunch more of them. So
the truth comes out.
Yeah, that's 10-string symphony. They're an act. They're great. Allison had been working with them on their project, on their record, which was on Compass, I believe. And she has, she's always thinking ahead on our records of who she might get involved when the time comes. And we recorded Squirrel Hunters, the old time tune that John Hartford was well known for playing, and we were kind of doing a Hartford, like a hidden Hartford theme on that record. Not so hidden maybe, but we used his version. He had a YouTube teaching video of that tune, and it's kind of iconic for just watching Hartford teach a tune. And we used that as sort of a template for the recording. And so they sort of laid their parts over Hartford's parts. It was the magic of the studio. We snuck that in there off the YouTube video and used it as an intro piece. And then we arranged the rest of the song out from there. So that was it. But we've used every record. We'll have, we will have fiddlers, at least 2 on each record. And the textures get pretty thick when you get, really fine fiddle players on those records, and we have them on every one at some point. So it's just adding, even if it's not a complete symphony, just that extra layer or 2 extra layers of stringed instruments that have a sustaining quality to them, which bluegrass instruments don't do. The fiddle's the only one that can do that. The dobro can to an extent, but the rest of them, unless you're playing tremolo, you don't have a sustaining instrument, and to have that quality, that layer of timbre, let's say, on a record, it really, really helps everything out, because everything else is kind of hitting and punchy, and the strings sort of smooth all that out. And that really helps a lot on a bluegrass record. Special C, long before I was around, did do some symphony orchestra stuff in Chicago, and we did do a guest performance with on an Irish feature, like a Celtic feature with Chicago, not the symphony orchestra, but I can't remember which ensemble it was. But anyway, we did get to perform with an orchestra, but that didn't get recorded. But it was a live performance. It was really, really crazy to sit in a string section, the band's right here, and then there's a string section around you, and it's like, wow. Yeah, it was strange because I've never played in an orchestra. I played jazz. I never played classical music. I studied classical music, but I never really played it. Played in concert band, but I was playing percussion back behind everybody. But to actually sit in a section like that was really quite an interesting perspective to have. Hard.
So Dan, and Darren, but Dan first, when you were looking at, compiling your songs for your solo album, Look What the City's Done, how does that differ from when you guys as Special C is trying to compile the songs that you'd like to put on your next album?
Well, with my record, it was just me deciding to do the songs I wanted to do, and they were mostly I wrote most of them, and then there was a couple of key arrangements of cover songs that we'd been doing in Special C, and then the rest of them were just songs that I just felt like I wanted to get on a record of my own, and I co-wrote one with John Weisberg, and I co-wrote one with Tony Rackley. And the rest of them, 3 or 4 more that I wrote. And then I also did kind of a strange version of Cattle in the Cane. And you'll have to hear it to really understand it, but it's salsa-fied bluegrass. It's bass, mandolin, and congas. So it's very strange, but cool as it can be. I really enjoyed doing that. So the difference is that when Special C does a record, we're bringing in material from all sorts of directions. From, we start getting solicited for getting a song on the record, about a year out from when we start actually making it. Mm-hmm. And so Allison gets stuff, we get stuff, we write stuff, because we end up with a theme. Usually we work off of a theme in Special C. Every record has some sort of a unifying theme in it, and this last one was Chicago, so that was easy enough. We had to find some bluegrass songs about Chicago. Well, that should be no problem, right? So that was a challenge, let me tell you. The writers probably all hate us now, but because it was really tough to get that figured out, but we eventually did. And we just had to take some songs that were not really of the bluegrass idiom and bend it into that idiom to make it work. And it was fun doing it. And I got to put one on there. I wrote one that went through a lot of edits to get it, ready for the record, because other songs would come in that had some of the same reference points, and I'm like, no, I got to get that out of there. And I ended up, I had a chorus that was working, the verses had to get trashed and be rebuilt again. So, but yeah, that's sort of how it goes. With the Special C record, we're gathering in from all sorts of directions. On a solo record, and not, at least for me, not quite so much. I mean, I really wanted to be more of a writer when I first moved to Nashville. I've sort of grown out of that, but not that I will never write again. But I don't write as much as I once did. I really was going after it there for a little bit, right? And then it just, I don't know. What I wrote really was just for me, and I just kind of kept it that way, I guess. Right. So yeah.
And how about you, Darren? I mean, of course, you've had several solo projects out, and of course, just a few with Blossom Range. How does that differ for you, and to work with the band and yourselves, kind of like figuring out which ones you want to keep to yourself and pitch to the band?
For me, it comes down to like what fits. There's certain things that fit some solo stuff that probably maybe wouldn't fit a Balsam Range record. The same thing as Dan, like Balsam Range is a collective effort. We're getting material from all these different places, and we decide, what is the Balsam Range sound? What's a song? We're really big on lyrics. That's kind of been the I would say that's what Balsam Range is known for, is like material, trying to find good songs, that are that appeal to the masses. And like I think of bands like the Eagles, and all their material, they were a great band, obviously, but their material was so strong that it kind of stands on its own. And bands like that are timeless, and that's, we're not the Eagles, but we're always going for trying to find the best material. Same way with a solo project. But if you want to see my personality, you'll get a solo project, or you'll come see me at a solo show without Balsam Range. But, Balsam Range, the ensemble, that we kind of do that collectively. And there's songs that I do on the solo thing, that wouldn't fit Balsam Range, that wouldn't be our style or whatever. But that's why you do solo projects, because you have creative parts of you that you want to get out somewhere else. And some of my favorite artists, two of the people at the top of my list that three, one is Tim O'Brien, one is Daryl Scott, and the other is Marty Stewart. And what I love about their music is every record is different. You know what I mean? There might be a Celtic record, then there's a Mississippi blues record, then there's a country record, then there's they're always trying for something different. It's not the same thing every time, because I think they get bored musically, and I find myself doing the same thing. I want to keep kind of pushing the boundaries, but really good material is just and the older I get, the more and more I get into original material. I think young players kind of like to do covers and play the songs from their favorite players. But as you get older, you kind of grow out of that, and you start coming into your own a little bit, and realizing how important being original, having your own sound, having your own style, having your own tunes, how important that is.
And how do you, when, folks compare some hardcore bluegrass, and I think, and I think you guys both agree, is you got to be yourself and bring the same to the table for all fans to enjoy, because the music, the bluegrass community is so huge in different styles of bluegrass, and Special C as well as Blossom Range are definitely bring their own. And you know exactly who you're listening to when you tune in. You're on listening to the radio, or you happen on, to Bluegrass Music TV and watch some videos before you even see who it is. You can tell by your guys' instrumental playing, from band to band, and who it might be. Do you think as younger generations in bluegrass, are coming out, and especially now during this pandemic, a lot of them have been going to social media and kind of, doing little mini shows and little putting some songs out there. What kind of advice can you give them, as they're developing their foundation and being true to themselves? Dan, we'll go with you first.
Well, actually, I need to pay more attention to what they're doing, and they need to give me the advice, to be honest, because we're in a different world now, and they're more equipped for it than I am, for sure. I mean, the advice that I might have given them a year ago might have been valid, but I really don't know what I would tell them now. Mm-hmm. One thing that I think is absolutely universal, and that's just practice your instrument and practice singing and write, and just keep doing stuff. And don't get so caught up in all of the, I know social media is important and I know all of that stuff, but if you don't have all of the actual abilities covered that you need to put something out there that really sounds good. I mean, you could be an expert at video production or whatever, but if you don't have the musical aspect covered, you're going to short yourself. So I would like to see just more attention paid to just personal growth on your instrument, singing, writing, before the rest of what it takes to put a product out there online. And that's, I don't know what to think about all that. It's a tough thing because getting out there and playing live, pretty quick if you're getting it done or not. I think it's a little less of an obvious thing with the online world. If people start snapping their lawn chairs and walking out, you know that it's not happening. You don't have that same experience when you're doing an online show.
Right.
So just the things that always were there are still going to be there, but I really think that we all need to learn from the young ones that are really doing it right and doing it well. So yeah, I'm looking at them for advice, to be honest.
How about you, Darren?
I think this is a great opportunity for people to kind of cultivate their own thing, because we're not around other musicians. We're not being influenced. You're going to see some people have like breakout careers out of this pandemic just because they're just doing their thing. And we always tip our hat back to tradition in bluegrass. But the reality is, the most traditional thing you can do in bluegrass is not sound like anybody else. Bill Monroe, Flatt and Scruggs, Jim and Jesse, the Osbournes, Stanley Brothers, they all tried to sound different. And now there's a generation of people who are just trying to sound like Bill Monroe or trying to sound like Flatt and Scruggs. And even if you play it better than them, they did it first. And so you have to do your own thing. Like that is just so important. That's what I would tell a young musician is, having your own identity. Like Bill Monroe, he was doing his own thing, and if that's what keeps bluegrass music alive and fresh and keeps it new. And, when you have your own thing, the only person you're ever in competition with is yourself. So many people, especially in bluegrass or some of these subgenres or underground genres, there's such a hard competition for shows and gigs and notoriety and this and that. They make it a competition, and it doesn't have to be. As long as you're doing your own thing, you're never in competition with anybody. Right. You can go on behind anybody. You can play in front of anybody, just because the only person you're in competition with is yourself to do your best. That is the thing I would tell young musicians, and, just trying to, and I'm 37 years old, and honestly, I just feel like in the last couple of years, I'm really finding my own voice and my own place in the music, like where I am comfortable with what I'm doing and, the direction that I'm in. But Dan hit on something, especially in the world of social media now. Like when the pandemic first came out, everybody was saying, you got to have great video production and audio. That's the only way people will listen to you. Well, then a lot of times people would have great video and audio, but they weren't that good. The music wasn't that good. And I would pass on really nice, high quality videos. And I would rather watch Daryl Scott or Dennis Parker just sit on the couch and play, because they're so, it's like the music has to be there first. The talent, the music, the individuality, that has to be there first. I think people are smart enough to recognize nothing sells better than the real thing. And even though you dress it up, you can only polish a turd so much. It's only, it's still a turd, so you gotta, people seek out the real music. They're going to find the people who are doing the real things, the original music that are, doing their own thing, that are the real deal. People, the cream rises to the top, and you're going to see a lot of that come out of this pandemic.
Yeah. And speaking of that pandemic, of course, we're approaching well, we're at a year, but pretty much our lockdown back in March of 2020, and so you guys have definitely ventured into some unique things and got yourself some great opportunities. Like Darren, you had mentioned earlier about doing Zoom lessons and Skype lessons and things like that to kind of help with the fact that down the road. But Dan, do we call you Professor Dan?
There's only one of those. There's only one of those.
I know. I that because we got Professor Dan Boner, and now we have Professor Dan Eubanks.
Oh no, he's the real professor. I'm just a guy helping out with his bass lessons. That's all. But no, I'm extremely happy that I'm part of the ETSU faculty now. Just started that this semester, which is a thrill for me because I'm a big fan of their program and the folks that have come through it have become some of my really good friends and jam buddies and stuff like that. Everybody that's come through there has just been, they can get it done. So they definitely are doing it right in that program. And, I used to, before I moved to Nashville, I was adjunct teaching, which is what they call the not full-timers in college world, if you don't know that term. And that's what I am now for ETSU. But I did that in the St. Louis area for like 6 different schools for years. I'd be running all over the place. I'd have a nights class here and teach a lesson here and direct a combo here. And, I was running like that and playing gigs for, most of my adult life before I came to Nashville. And then my teaching has all been private and at camps and stuff like that since then. So it's nice to be associated with the university again. So I'm really excited about it, and especially one like ETSU. It's just been great, and I'm a big fan of that program and everybody over there. And and also just really heartbroken for them all right now, as we saw at the top of the show. So I don't want to go too far down that again, but I can't talk about ETSU without talking about Frosty. So yeah,
it's
what
amazing.
a way to start the semester.
As you're looking at the next hopefully near future of getting back on the road and touring, I know some shows are on the books, but how are you guys ready for this? Are you ready to get back on the road and be playing for a live audience, even if it is at a limited capacity? Darren, I think you guys have something lined up towards the end of the month.
Yeah, I've pretty much given up on playing live shows. I'm just going to sell my blood and be a possum farmer. I think that's pretty much what I'm going to do. To hell with trying to book another show. I found myself last year, things would reschedule, then they would cancel again. And so I got to a point where I'm like, I'm not rescheduling anything till this is over, because it's just so heartbreaking to reschedule and then wait on it. And then we do have a couple of things on the books, but honestly, I don't know if they're gonna happen. Right. And so, I would have never taken a year off myself, just because I love to work. I love being out with people, love doing shows. But I've had a lot of good things come out of this pandemic, and I'm probably going to make some people angry because they've had such a hard time in the pandemic, and I've had a hard time too. But I've been traveling since I was 18 years old. Well, I've been playing music my whole life. I've never had a Friday or Saturday night off as long as I can remember.
Well, you were getting diaper.
Do what?
You were getting tips.
That's right. Yeah, getting tip money. So I've actually got to spend some time with my family this year and get into the songwriting thing. And I'm just trying to look at the positives of it. A friend of mine said to me the other day, he said, well, how are you handling this? Because I was really struggling with it. I'm like, man, I miss doing shows. I miss getting out there. And I was, it's easy to get depressed. It's easy to get down and start looking at all the negative things, And so having positive people around you and trying to keep a good attitude has kind of been crucial for me. But my friend said, how are you handling this pandemic as opposed to the other pandemics you've been through? And it just makes you realize, this is new for all of us. We're all struggling. We're all having a hard time. None of us have the answers. None of us know what to do. So we're just kind of doing the best we can. If a show happens, awesome. If it don't happen, that's okay too. I've just got to accept that. I'm not in control of these things, and I'm just kind of living a day at a time, and just trying to have good attitude about it. But I don't know when live shows are going to come back. I know I miss human beings. I even miss the aggravating festival people, the ones who come to me. I'm like a magnet for any kind of crazy person. They come to me, and I don't know why, but I even miss those people. The ones who ask me, why does the biggest guy play the smallest instrument 15 times? The ones who get in your face with awful breath and face talk to you about what Mac Wiseman did in 1946. I even miss those people. I'm sure I am. It's been it's a lot of good things about being off, but I'm ready to get back out there. But I'm just kind of having to roll with the flow like everybody else right now.
Dan, I know you got the gig with ESTU, and but you guys, you and your wife just took in a dog, right?
Yeah, we did. She was in here a little while ago. Yeah, she's a rescue dog that I've always kind of gotten involved with animals. Animals come to me like those people at the festival come to Darren. So that's been my cross to bear. But I always end up with strays wherever I go. So this little pup came to us from a rescue organization here in our neighborhood, and we got hip to him originally because a friend of ours lost her dog. She got out on her mom and dad one day and was gone for like a month, and these folks got her. They're professionals who don't get paid at getting dogs back to their homes. So as a result, they often have some fosters around. And when our old dog passed away last summer, we were really depressed and everything. And this organization that we work with before, I knew had some dogs, and we were like, well, maybe we should see if they have any, And we ended up with a 3-year-old pitty coon dog mix named Chloe, and she's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. So the thing is the pandemic is I'm around the house a lot, and that dog is like Velcro to me, and I don't know what's going to happen when I go back out on the road. So it's going to be some serious.
Just take it with
anxiety.
you.
I want to. If I could get Greg to let her in the room at night, we'll see what happens. Yeah. Well, no, but what Darren was saying is so true. It's like you really don't know what to make of a schedule these days. And if the stuff happens, you go do it. Be as safe as you can, and just do your best. We're not in control. We're just not. And and I'm a bit of a control freak, so that's not good for me. So I have to learn some coping strategies, which has been good for me. So, it's all, there's a silver lining to all of it, basically. And if you choose to see it, and I'm not the best at seeing it all the time, and I'm trying to get better. So.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck getting back on the road, being safe, like you said, as we encourage everybody to do. I want to remind folks again, to check out bossonrange.com, Darren Nicholson.net, as well as specialc.com for the latest and the greatest music that has been created by 2 amazing award-winning bands, Boss and Range, as well as Special Consensus. And again, can't wait to see you guys back on the road. Hopefully it won't be too far for long. But I can't wait to hear more great music. Can't wait for that brand new album from Boss and Range. Of course, been enjoying the Chicago Barn Dance. as Special C celebrated 45 years of amazing, great music. And thank you so much, both of you, for being part of the show today and giving me the time and getting a little real with us, because I think it's important when we get together in different aspects and hearing from different folks from different bands and getting a chance to hear from our fellow listeners who join us at festivals and buy our merchandise. And then I think that's a nice way for them to also be able to talk with you guys as well, especially during this pandemic. And so, thank you again for your time. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. And also to Sammy Passamano, who's behind the scenes taking care of all the reels and deals that happens to make this thing work with Bluegrass Music TV. And I want to make sure you all head over to bluegrassmusictv.com and subscribe to Bluegrass Music TV Prime for all things bluegrass with Ronnie Reno's Old Time show, the 615 Hideaway shows, as well as Wood Songs Classics, Real Talk with yours truly, me, Michelle Lee, and so much more. $4.95 a month, bluegrass music right there for Bluegrass Music TV Prime. Just go to bluegrassmusictv.com. And again, if you'd like to see the wonderful video put together in memory of Frosty, it is on Bluegrass Music Television, YouTube, and Facebook as well. Again, I invite you to join us for Real Talk Bluegrass. We'll keep you up to date when the next one will be and who our next guest will be as we get real here on Real Talk. And again, I invite you to join me Monday through Friday on the Smoke Country Jam from 7 a.m. till noon, as well as the Bluegrass Borderline Sunday afternoons at noon till 5 o'clock on WOBLradio.com. Download our free mobile app. You can stay connected to me here on Facebook as well as on our website at WOBLradio.com, and soon coming, Michelle Lee on air.com. Again, thank you to Dan Eubanks of Special Consensus, Darren Nicholson of Balsam Range for being my guests. And again, Sammy Passamano behind the scenes, and all of you who joined us this evening for Real Talk as we got real with me, Michelle Lee. Until next time, thank you guys.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Darren, good to see you. Love you guys.
Great to see you too. Yeah, y'all stay safe out there. And Michelle, thanks for all you do for Bluegrass. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Later on.